You know, we live in a culture that worships a very specific myth, the myth of the self-made man. We are told that if you grind hard enough, if you isolate yourself, if you go lone wolf, you will eventually conquer the mountain. You can see the edits on TikTok, the Sigma male alone in his room working while everyone is partying, and you think, oh, that's me. I don't need anyone. I'm a fortress. I have walked that path, and I can tell you with no doubt, with absolute certainty, that this is a lie. The lone wolf doesn't conquer the mountain. The lone wolf starves, or even worse, he walks in circles. He thinks he's making progress because he's moving, but really, he's just fighting his own shadows in a very, very dark room. You're not isolating yourself because you are strong. You are isolating yourself because you are arrogant. You think you are too smart for the sheep, so you cut yourself out. But in doing so, you cut off the only thing that actually creates growth. And that thing is friction. Iron sharpens iron, but you are just a piece of iron sitting in a velvet box, wondering why you aren't getting any sharper. Now let's look at the biology of why are you stuck. Now there is a concept called mimesis. We are mimicking animals. We are wired to copy the people around us. If you surround yourself with anxious, distracted, doomer friends, you will become anxious and distracted. It is not a choice. It is a biological law. You catch their mindset like a virus. It's like the saying, if you surround yourself with 6 stupid people, you will become the 7th. If you surround yourself with 6 successful people, you will become the 7th successful person. But here's the catch 22. And I know this is what you are thinking, but everyone around me is asleep. Everyone around me is a zombie. I hang out with them. I feel like I will fall back asleep. So, you have a choice. Stay alone and rot in your own echo chamber, or go back to the herd and become a sheep. This is a dilemma of the modern awake person. You feel spiritually homeless. You want a mentor, you want a guide, but when you look around, what do you actually see? People obsessed with politics, people obsessed with sports, or gurus who want to charge you 5,000 just to breathe the same air as them. Real mentorship, the kind the ancients spoke of, the master and the apprentice, well, it feels dead. So how do we solve this? How do we break the isolation without lowering our standards? Well, I had to find a different way. I had to find mentors who didn't want my money, who were never too busy to speak to me, and who possessed the wisdom that actually stood in the test of time. Let me teach you a psychological technique used by Carl Jung, by the Stoics, and by the greatest generals in history. It's called the invisible counsel. If the living cannot teach you, you must summon the dead. Let's say Napoleon Hill, the author, admitted that every night before he slept, he held an imaginary council meeting. He imagined a long table, and at this table he invited the men he admired the most. Socrates, Emerson, Darwin, Napoleon Bonaparte. He would visualize them so clearly that he said they began to feel real. He wouldn't just sit there, he would ask them questions. He would turn to Lincoln and ask about patience. He would turn to Socrates and ask about truth. And his mind, tapping into what Jung called the collective unconscious, would generate answers in their voices. I know this sounds like madness, I know. It sounds like schizophrenia, but it is actually a high-level tool for lateral thinking. It is forcing your brain to step out of your limited perspective and simulate the perspective of a genius. Now, you don't need to close your eyes to do this. You just need a book. But you have to stop reading books like a consumer. Most of you read to say you've read it. You scan and go through the pages, you highlight some cool quote, but then you just move on. You don't even pay attention to the quotes you highlighted. So that is useless. When I read Dan Millman, I'm not just reading words, I'm trying to download his operating system. And here is the practice. Choose one mentor for the month. Just one, and let's say it's Dan Millman. Don't read 10 other books. Read only Dan Millman. Read his letters, read his biography, get obsessed with the guy. And then, when you have a problem in your life, when you are angry or lazy or fearful, do not ask, what should I do? Ask, what would Dan Millman say about this? And suddenly, the answer shifts. You would say, I'm tired, I deserve a break. But Dan Millman would say, you are dying. Time is the one thing you cannot get back. Why are you wasting it? Now, do you see the difference? By shifting the perspective to the invisible mentor, you bypass your own excuses. You break the loop of your own weakness. You must treat the books that you are reading as living entities. Don't leave them on a shelf to look smart. Mark them up. Write in the margins. Argue with them. That is the only way to forge a connection with a mentor who is no longer in a body. Now, let's be honest over here. Books are very powerful tool. They saved my life. They helped me quite a lot. I didn't read millions of books. I actually have a few books, but just in different languages. But ultimately, we are building something here, so we don't have to rely on the books and on the dead. The goal of the Invisible Council is to tune your frequency. When you spend your nights arguing with Nietzsche or debating with Marcus Aurelius, you change. You stop vibrating at the level of desperation. You start vibrating at the level of wisdom. And when you change that frequency, you start attracting different people in real world. You won't attract the normies, and you won't attract the doomers. You will attract the seekers, the other people who are walking that quiet path. So if you feel alone right now, it's okay, it's good. Use that solitude, build your invisible council, let the dead teach you what the living have forgotten. Pick one book this week, one author, make them your mentor. Listen to them until you can hear their voice in your head. You are never truly alone if you have access to the truth. I'll see you in the next one.